We are now going to create a morph that is applied to shapes that we drew. They could also be vector-based graphics that you're given, like the client's logo, if they give it to you in Illustrator and it's vector-based, not bitmap-based, right? We can only do so much with those. We messed with that early on with that snowboarding company or whatever. That was all bitmap. You can't do these tricks with that. It has to be a vector-based graphic. But the thing is, as you'll see, there are some limitations. So it isn't always as straightforward as it looks, but there is morphing basically built right into anything that is actually made up of vectors. So we're going to build 3 shapes: a square, a circle, and a triangle, and we're going to watch it change to each of those things. All right, and I'm hopefully going to get this to work. So let's create a new composition, and we're going to call it shape morph. Shape morph. I have one already, so I'm going to call this 2. Again, we're still working in 23976, 1920, 1080, kind of standard HD stuff. And Nico has a question. Ask away, my friend. I can't hear you, Nico. Maybe he didn't have a question after all. Maybe he accidentally hit it.
He doesn't have a mic, but he was asking a question in the chat.
Oh, wonderful. All right, so I am recording. I don't know what shows on your end, but I am. I assure you, I can see it. It's telling me I am. Pretty sure. Yes, it is running. But thank you for helping me in case I missed something. So Nico doesn't have a question. Where's the question? You changed the color. No, that's not it. Going back. Horizontal scale was set to 0. Change the color by adding. No, that's Ashley's question. Sorry. Maybe just type your question again because I am having trouble knowing exactly what it is you're stuck on. But until then, I am going to attempt to move on. Oh, it was the recording thing. Fantastic. Okay, so for a shape morph, we are going to build 3 shapes. We're going to start with a red or a circle, a square, a circle, and a triangle. We're going to make those shapes by doing these things. I'm going to flip my direction so I don't get lost. All right, so we're making 3 new shape layers. So we are going to go to the layer menu, go to new, and do shape layer, and we're going to do it 3 times. Shape layer, and shape layer, all under new. First one, I'm going to hit return on it so I can type, and I'm going to call it, what was I, square. Shape layer 2, I'm going to call circle. And then the last one, the top one, I'm going to call triangle. It's going to be a little trickier to do. So we're going to work our way up from the bottom. We're going to go to square first, and we are going to go get the tool that will allow us to draw a shape, which is up here. There is a rectangle tool, is what it defaults to. The last thing I touched happened to be a star, so it was set to that, but yours is probably set to rectangle tool, which is fine. Go ahead and select the rectangle tool. Make sure you are on the square layer. And then if you hold down shift while you draw, it will restrict it to be a perfect square. That's what I was told. That is not in fact at all what is happening. Don't you love it when things don't work exactly like they're supposed to? I swear it worked when I did this. All right, it doesn't have to be perfect. Draw your square. It's really stupid.
Shift and drawing the shape works for me. It creates a perfect square.
Yeah, and it did for me. It didn't for me just now, but it did when I built this originally. So that's kind of weird. All right, so I'm going to center this thing. So I'm going to do the Control Alt double click to anchor, put the anchor point in the middle. Then I can align it by going over to align, not audio. Really? Sorry, sometimes my tablet requires that I shift to a different space and then back again. There we go. Align center, align top to bottom, whatever. There's my lovely square. Awesome. All right. And we are going to go to layer 2 and we're going to draw a circle, and we're going to do the same trick and hope that it works. I'm going to select the ellipse tool, and then I'm going to start drawing, and I think by default it starts scaling the circle from wherever you start. So I think I'm going to want to click out here, and I'm going to want to click and drag. And again, shift is not working for me. I don't know why, but just get it close. And then I will do the Control Alt double click trick, put my anchor in the middle, and auto center, and I was pretty darn close. And we have a question from Desmond. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
How do you pull up the circle tool?
How did I do what?
Uh, Pull up the tool to draw the
The
circle.
bullet. Yes, if you click up where we got our rectangle tool, if you hold it down, there are other tools. The ellipse tool is the one we just did. Sorry, I kind of breezed over that quickly. There's a polygon tool and a star tool and some other things too. But I just went
Okay,
to
cool.
ellipse. Yep. Sorry, I didn't vocalize that. Thank you for holding me accountable. Okay, so if you have a super thick stroke, sounds like a medical condition, and you don't like it, then the shape controls, we used to go over here for the character controls for fonts, but if you're dealing with shapes, they're up at the top. There is fill and stroke up there, and you can shrink the stroke, you can make it more extreme, whatever you want. I would probably get rid of it by making it a 0. And that's where you can change your color as well. So all those controls are up here. All right, now the triangle. Let's see if I can get through the triangle one. So what we did was a polygon tool. And I think I draw it first. So I'm going to do the shift trick again to get it close to right. And of course, mine is coming out from the center, so it's really wacky. And a command and control, or control and alt for you PC users, and double click on the anchor tool to put it in the middle. And I'm going to auto align it. And again, it's not going to let me do it because my tablet is freaking out. So I'm going to go back here and do it again, align it. And that again was a little smaller than necessary, but not exactly perfect. Now, if I want a triangle though, this is too many points for a triangle. So if we go to the polystar controls, somewhere in here, we can set the number of points. Here we go. So I opened the contents of my triangle layer. I went to polystar 1 and I opened it. And then there's a polystar path. And if you open that, you will finally get to a point where you will see that there is a number of points control. And this shape, by definition, has 5. If you change it to 3, you will get a triangle. And if you go back and select the arrow tool, you should be able to scale it up and move it around to get it closer to aligned with the other things we drew. All right, so that again was content, polystar, polystar path, then finally changed the points to 3 from 5, and that gave me what I expected to see. All right, so all the anchors are close to center here. Everything is close to centered on the screen. Now, this is where it gets a little interesting. Let me double check my original here to make sure that I have it right. So under polystar, we're going to start with the top layer. Under polystar path 1, there should be a path 1. Polystar path 1. Yep. There is. Is there a path? It's labeled path 1, but I don't know if that's the same thing. Star 1, why is that just? Sorry, this is where it gets a little trickier, and of course, polystar path 1. Okay, right click and convert. Okay, so what we're doing is we're going to take this polystar path, we're going to highlight it, and then right click on it. And we are going to convert this polystar path to a Bezier path. All right. So we don't know what we just did, but it was important. So it is now a path 1, and it's labeled just path 1. And we are going to set a keyframe with the little stopwatch next to where it says path. All right. Path, and I set a keyframe. All right. Then we're going to do that to each layer. All right. So we're going to go to each layer. So now that I have my triangle done, I'm going to go to circle. I'm going to open that ellipse. I'm going to go to the ellipse path, and I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to say convert to a Bezier path, and it's now going to give me a simple path 1 and a path, and I'm going to set a keyframe there. And then I'm going to go to my square, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to the rectangle, open it, go to the rectangle path, and highlight it, right click it, convert to Bezier path, and then it will change what comes up, and I will have path 1 as an option, and I have a path there, and I'm going to set a keyframe as well. Now, this is a little odd. Why are we having to do all of this? Well, what we're basically doing is we're saying this is a solid shape, but I want the software to see it as connected lines, a Bezier path. Once it sees them as a series of connected lines, we can actually steal the keyframe that we just put on each of those where the shape is the correct shape, and we're going to steal those keyframes and apply them to the first layer. So basically, it will start off as a square, and then it will redraw the keyframe to go to the next keyframe. It's going to redraw the Bezier lines to make it a different shape. And then it will redraw it again to give us our third shape. Okay, so the core idea here is to take something that was a solid, essentially. We never selected solid, we did shape. But the point is, it saw it as a solid item. We told it, nope, treat it as a series of lines that are drawn that are plot pointed, and we want you to automatically convert them. So what we're going to do now is we are going to steal the path keyframe from the layers above and apply it to the bottom layer, but we've got to spread them out. So I'm going to go, we have a keyframe right here. We already set for square, and this is it being square, yay, square. Now we're going to go a second in, so I know where I'm going to put it. Actually, no, I guess, I'm sorry, I can't do that yet. I have to go steal it first. So if I wanted to go from a square to a circle, then I'm going to go up to the circle layer, and I am going to steal this keyframe from here. And this is where I want to make sure I remember how to do it. You can copy and paste the path information. So if I go path, let's try this. Copy. I go down to my bottom layer, go a second or so in so it doesn't screw up the keyframe I already have, and I paste, and I make sure I'm on the path, and I paste it. It now has made a second keyframe, and it is changing my square into a circle as it goes to that keyframe. All right. And then I can do the same with the triangle. So if I go back to the beginning, which is where the keyframe I'm going to steal is, up here in the triangle category, I'm going to go to the path for triangle, and I'm going to copy. I'm going to go back down to my square layer. And I'm going to go 2 seconds in, make sure that I'm pasting onto the path information, paste that keyframe, and now I have it morphing square, circle, triangle. Now, I know we've had a couple questions come up. I'm going to try to see what they are now. Same thing, polygon tool, you need to change the number of points. Yes, we changed the number of points to 3 so that it wouldn't be 5. And that will fix it. And then easiest way to draw it. Got cool, cool. Got my shapes. Cool, that works. Yay! All right, so so how we did it was we basically set a path keyframe on each of our layers so that we had sort of a home position of how each thing was shaped. So path, which we think of as an animated path, is not quite the same. Path in this place is a state of that shape, and we're stealing the shape information from the other layers. So honestly, we can turn off, once we get far enough in, we can turn off the circle, we can turn off the triangle, and so that we only see our morphing shape. Now, but what all we did was go, once we had all our shapes and they were all close to one another, we went up, we went to the path control. We had to promote the original layer to be a convert to Bezier. So we had to do that to each layer. And then once we did that, we went into the path. We set a keyframe at the beginning of each layer. So there's no trick there. They're all just at the beginning. And then we stole those keyframes and put them at different points along our timeline and only did it to the bottom layer. So it starts off with the one it already had, which was a square. It turned into a circle. Now I could repeat this keyframe so that it stays a circle longer. Right now it goes immediately from a circle to a triangle because it's morphing quickly. But obviously I could create multiple keyframes that allowed it to sit for as long as I want as a circle before turning into a triangle. So you have some control here with keyframes. But the concept we're trying to get our head around is the idea that you could take a shape and turn it into a Bezier thing, which then gives you all this ability to like change across different things. And you can steal keyframes. If you remember, whether you asked the question at the time or not, many of you asked when we were doing Premiere and we were doing masking and stuff, it was like, hey, can I steal the keyframes that I already did for one layer and put them on another? And in Premiere, you can't always do that. You can't always do it in After Effects either, but you can a lot. And as you just saw, as long as we took them from a path track, we could post them into a different path track, and it understood what to do with it. So the way to turn it to the Bezier one is we had a simple one. It was just labeled Polystar, I think, originally, and we right clicked on it, and then it gave us the convert to Bezier. And when we did that, the items that come up underneath it changed and gave us a simple path 1 to work with. So once you've converted it, it should work. All right. Yes, question from Desmond. If it's grayed out, you've already converted it or you're on the wrong level. So I'm going to do a new shape just to see if I can demonstrate again how we did it. So if I do a layer new, this was a shape layer, and I'm going to just draw new shape. How about a star? I draw a new star. I can add that to my mix. You don't have to follow along with me unless you want to do it again. I have a star now. Call it star. And I went to the Polystar controls here, which was already there when I made my star. The thing is, I probably want to center this before I get too carried away. Okay, so I say, yep, it's there, Polystar, right click, and it's grayed out, exactly like you said it was. Awesome. Then I opened it and I went to the Polystar path. Sorry, you can't just do it at the Polystar 1. You have to do it at the next layer down where the word path starts to show up. Then you can convert it to the kind of path we want. Go to the beginning of the timeline, set a keyframe where you know your star is shaped like a star. Then I can copy and paste this by clicking on it. Stupid tablet. Click, copy. I can turn off my star if I want because I don't actually need to see it. I'm going to add it down here on my square path. If I want to see my keyframes, I'll hit the letter U. There's my path. Here's my first keyframe where it's a square, my second keyframe where it's a circle, third keyframe where it's a triangle. Then it doesn't do anything. So I'm going to go 1 second down further, and I'm going to make sure that I'm on the path because I copied a path attribute. Now I'm going to the path again, paste it, and now I have a star. And you'll notice that it transforms from the triangle to the star. Now, in all honesty, I don't actually know why these things are moving around on the screen. We overlapped them deliberately, and that should have held true as we pasted them down here, but it doesn't. Now, we know enough about positioning, we can fix that, but I don't know why it's doing it. And even the person that trained me on this was like, yeah, I don't know why it's moving around, but you could fix it. So I don't care. This is a classroom exercise. You don't have to fix it. But that is probably what's happening, is that somehow its alignment is different as it's morphing, and that you have to compensate for that. So I am going to stop recording and take questions.